Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon on such short notice. In just a moment, test 1 2 3. You guys got me? All right, I'll keep talking. You guys do what you need to do. We're very flexible.
I won't start talking till it's fixed.
Good. I'll keep talking. I don't have that many jokes, but we'll keep talking till these guys give me the thumbs up, and we'll get started here. We're just excited that you're here. So if we're good, how about now? I'll sing the national anthem if you want. What do you think? All right. There you go. There you go. Got off to a good start here technically, right? But in just a moment, the state attorney's going to come up, and, you know, fentanyl is a very dangerous drug, and she wants to just highlight the efforts that our office is doing and our hardworking prosecutors are doing to hold those people accountable that would traffic this dangerous drug in our jurisdiction. So, Madam State Attorney.
Before you walk away, sir, could you pull the microphone close to the matter?
Of course.
Good afternoon. You guys hear me? Well, as Dave said, thank you guys for being here. It is always really important to me that the community but if you remember me from my first administration, which we affectionately refer to as 1.0, I've always said that facts matter. They mattered then and they matter now. The fentanyl crisis is devastating families across Central Florida, and it deserves solutions, not political theater. Now, the governor has claimed that this office is soft on crime, and that's not only misleading, it's a dangerous distraction from the real work being done by the prosecutors in this office to save lives in this community. Prosecuting fentanyl cases is not about politics, it's about protecting communities. And when politicians try to score points, they do so at the expense of grieving families. My office has one priority: ensuring justice is served based on facts, evidence, and the law, not political narratives. To be clear, these misleading claims about my office have been pushed for years by a governor who relied on false data from a disgraced and now indicted former Osceola sheriff. The Ninth Judicial Circuit has prosecuted fentanyl trafficking cases aggressively and effectively. There have been approximately 100 cases since January alone that have received drug trafficking minimum mandatory sentences. 29 of those cases were of fentanyl traffickers, and 6 of those cases received sentences over 20 years in prison. Our records show that traffickers and distributors are, in fact, held accountable in this circuit. We also take a balanced approach. We pursue strong penalties for those who profit from distribution, while also supporting pathways to treatment for those struggling with addiction. If you remember the platform that I ran on, it was to do just that, to ensure that we help those individuals who are impacted and addicted to drugs, while also holding those who profit and benefit off of the suffering of those individuals and their families accountable. That has not changed. The facts tell the story, not the campaign slogans. Only politics could lead someone to saying something so misleading. We don't measure justice in sound bites. We measure it in lives saved and in traffickers held accountable. And of that, we have receipts. Fighting fentanyl requires a full system response, not just a portion of law enforcement on the front end, but also prosecutors and courts who can carry these cases to the finish line. In the cases that I told you about with the 29 traffickers who received minimum mandatory drug sentences, those were prosecutors individual prosecutors who took those cases to court, some of them to trial, and it is a slap in their face to hear the governor of this state say that they're not doing their jobs. The governor has repeatedly emphasized funding law enforcement, but refuses to provide equal support to the offices that actually prosecute the cases. You can't fund half the system and expect full justice to be delivered. When prosecutors don't have the resources to match the volume and complexity of fentanyl cases, communities ultimately pay the price. My office has continued to do this work with limited resources, but the reality is that if we are serious about protecting families, if we're truly serious about protecting communities, then we must fund the entire system. Despite the distractions, I will continue to put people over politics. And I find it ironic that we are here today talking about the message that I send to the prosecutors in this office and to the community. And with that, I want to take you back to a meeting that I held with my prosecutors just a few weeks ago, where I addressed just this very issue. The first thing I want to talk about is minimum mandatory sentences. Everybody has their certain role in the criminal justice system. Our role is not to make decisions on whether or not we agree. Our role is to enforce the law as it is written. But I want to be really, really clear. There are legal reasons to waive minimum mandatories and do downward departures, and then there are illegal reasons, such as I don't agree, and I don't think we should, and I don't want to. And none of those reasons are acceptable here. What my position is on this, okay? My position is that we follow the law. We are going to be conducting case audits. And in the case audit, if we find that people are waiving minimum mandatories without legally sufficient reasons to do so, there will be discipline. And with that,
A few moments, guys, to take some on-top attorney. Yes, sir.
Well, could you lay out, you were talking about funding and how it makes the fight harder. Is there anything or specific
on facts. I operate in facts and only facts, and I've shared with you the facts today, not just of what our office is actually doing in this community, but what my position is to my attorneys with regards to whether or not we follow the law.
Do you think you can get more funding now that he's announced this money and the success of this program? Does that give you opportunity to get more funding?
I think that that is going to be up to the legislature of this state, and we will continue to fight for more funding for our circuit. Sir.
What did you mean by the governor relying on data provided by Mr. Lopez?
Yeah.
Accused of several crimes.
Yeah.
Is there something going on between his office and yours?
So that's historical. You're going to have to go back to press conferences held in 2023. I want to say it was March of 2023, where the sheriff came out and accused me of not prosecuting drug trafficking cases. And my response to that just a few days later was showing that the majority of cases that he was referencing were cases that hadn't even made it through the system yet. So he did this whole dog and pony show and held a press conference saying that I had prosecuted 0 out of however many cases that he listed. And the facts, once different news outlets chose to do their own investigations, showed that of those cases, the majority of them hadn't made it through the system, and of the ones that did, his office was actually responsible for those cases not being able to be prosecuted because of different things that they did wrong that led to motions to suppress being granted and things of that nature.
Were you aware of the Burn Baby Burn program and informed about all of these arrests that were made in Orlando?
No, but my understanding is that it's mostly for it's federal prosecution that's going to be happening there. So those cases wouldn't come to our office anyway, and it's really important for people to be able to differentiate federal prosecutions from state prosecutions. So if that's being handled in conjunction with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the FBI and the DEA, those are all federal law enforcement agencies. So those cases wouldn't come through our office anyway, not because we wouldn't prosecute them, but because it is federal law enforcement handling those cases.
So why then would he refer to you?
That is a very good question. It is.
Are there other examples other than the fentanyl battle that we know it's a crisis across the nation that you can highlight in the middle of this political message that doesn't seem to have an end?
Tell me about it. No, I mean, I meet with you all on a quarterly basis, and I tell you about all the good work that the men and women in this office is doing. It is not what I want to do to be spending time going over things like this. It actually distracts from the work that we have to do here in this office. So I come out every month. I tell you how many trials we've had. I told you what our win-loss ratio is. I tell you what we're going to do to make it better. And right now, I am focused on rebuilding this office in the best way possible and doing everything that I can to hang on to the talent that we have and to recruit better talent. So what I would love to see from Tallahassee is support for our office. I would love to see funding come into our office, and I would love to see the criticism stop, because the reality is when you criticize me, you criticize the voters in this community who voted to put me here not once but twice. And you have to lead with facts, because people lie, numbers don't. And I'm telling you what the numbers are with regards to our prosecution and minimum mandatory sentences that are given. I've shown you a video from a staff meeting that I held well before the governor ever spoke on this issue. So I didn't just create this so that I could come out here and tell you something today. We are very, very serious about prosecuting fentanyl, and the facts are what matters, and I hope that you all will incorporate that into your reporting on this issue.
Try to follow up with the governor?
How?
Will you reach out to his office and say, I mean, you just said his numbers are wrong, he was lying. Will you reach out and try to correct anything that you felt was wrong?
So we're correcting it here today with the people of this community. I don't think the governor intends on being accurate in the information that he has. We have reached out to the governor on several different instances and have not received a response, so I don't have any reason to believe that this would be any different.
So you feel this is the only way to get the message beyond the community and to him?
And so here's the thing. This message isn't for the governor. This message is for the community, the people of the Ninth Judicial Circuit who elected me. Because when political statements are made by entities, people can become confused. And it's very important for me, for the people who live here, to understand what the facts are and what we are actually doing in this office to keep our community safe. When people come out and they make false reports that are based on feelings instead of facts, that can create misinformation and disinformation. So this today is to correct and to clarify any misinformation or disinformation that has been given.
Were you surprised he said that about you?
Nothing surprises me anymore.
With the limited resources that your office has, how do you strategize taking on these prosecutions that come in every day, of course including the fentanyl trafficking prosecutions that you all have to take care of?
So that's a really good question. We prioritize. We prioritize, and it's really difficult, right, because it's clear that my office is under a microscope. So anything that we say we're not going to do is a problem, but there are only so many hands to do all of the things that we need to do. So we prioritize the crimes that are costing people their lives. And we know that fentanyl kills. So we have to ensure that we prioritize the prosecution of fentanyl cases. We know that we have to prioritize the prosecution of cases that we see these overdoses on, because we want to see those overdose deaths go down. We want to see that eliminated. So we prioritize that. We prioritize violent crime. We prioritize gun violence. And we also prosecute the other cases, and we do things to make our staffing go as far as it can, and that's why you saw back in March and April I was talking about the fact that we won't take non-arrest cases anymore, because those were things that were eating up our limited resources, and we have to prioritize. So that was part of my prioritization. But yeah, we only have so many people. In my Q2 press conference last week, I talked about the fact that we have about 29% of our staff that has more than 5 years of experience, and prosecuting fentanyl cases is very complex, and we need individuals who have experience who are able to do that. And we need the resources to be able to attract talent who have experience in the criminal justice system. And when you have people who are coming from the other circuits who are funded at $26,000 per capita, when we're funded at $20,000 per capita, those circuits can afford to pay these high-level attorneys more than $100,000 a year. How am I going to get them to come here when all I can offer them is $80,000, right? And these are attorneys, we're talking about attorneys with 5 years or more experience.
I have an email from a victim advocate from the court who's helping a family of a hit-and-run case that's pending trial. And the email says they're telling the family that most of our cases, your cases, are not resolved over a year. Is that because there's a backlog of cases, or what could the situation be?
So I can't speak to that specific situation because I don't have the facts on that, but I can tell you that in general, it takes cases about a year to get through the system, especially when we're dealing with felony cases. And on certain cases, if we're talking about traffic homicides, it'll be a year before we ever even get a report from the Florida Highway Patrol, right? So justice moves slowly in the system, and yes, some of that has to do with case backlogs, but some of it just has to do with the system in general. And that's why when I refer back to the 2023 numbers given by then Sheriff Lopez, it just was unrealistic because he was reporting early in 2023 on cases that happened in 2023. Well, it's not realistic to expect that those cases would have made it through the system in that time frame.
Can you explain why it's complex? You said it was complex to prosecute fentanyl cases?
Right. Well, particularly the fentanyl overdose cases, right? We have to be able to prove that the individual that we're prosecuting is the individual that sold the drugs to the person who made them overdose, right? So there's a lot of groundwork that goes into that, and working with law enforcement that goes into that. Now we see that law enforcement is being adequately compensated to do that work. But for my prosecutors, this is one of hundreds of cases that they have on their desk. So what would be ideal is if we had more prosecutors and we could give them fewer cases so they had more time to focus on building the best cases possible so that they can obtain convictions. Other cases on this topic? Questions, rather, on this topic. Okay, so getting back to your question, unfortunately, these arrests are seemingly political. My decision is not a political one. In this office, we have a duty to follow the law, and law enforcement will make arrests, and my office is responsible for how those cases are handled once they come before us. We'll review each case with fairness, transparency, and respect for both the law and the members of our community. But it's very important to understand that our commitment is to ensure justice is administered with integrity, guided by the facts of each individual case, and mindful of the trust our community places in this office.
Are those cases then still under review at this point?
Oh, absolutely. They're brand new. They just came in and they're just being reviewed now. I know one of the cases, no probable cause was found by the court. 3 of them, I believe the court has found probable cause, and those cases will work their way through the system in the same way that all of the other cases that come through our office do.
I just have another question about how close your office is to making a charging decision related to the Oakley case.
When we make it, you'll know. All right? All right.
Thank you so much for coming. If you have any additional questions, Anika Hamilton is our PIO, so feel free to reach out to her.
Thank you.
Everybody good with me to disconnect?